At Mother's Day lunch, Mom toasted, "I'm proud of all my children except my failure." Everyone laughed. I stood, placed a black box on the table, and said, "For you, Mom." As I walked out, her scream echoed. What was inside changed everything. At the Mother's Day lunch, she raised her glass and said, laughing, "I'm proud of all my children except the parasite at the table." Everyone laughed. I stood up calmly, pulled a small black box from my pocket, and placed it right in the center of the table. "For you, Mom. Happy Mother's Day." I walked out without looking back. She screamed when she opened it and saw what was inside. I looked in the mirror one last time before leaving. Freshly ironed blue shirt, black pants, and the watch my dad gave me before he died. I tried to see in my reflection something of what he saw in me, something my mother never did. I took a deep breath. In my jacket pocket, the small black box felt heavy as lead. I touched it to make sure it was still there, though I'd checked it 10 times that morning. Inside was everything I'd held on to for years, all the truth, all the pain, all the deceit. It was Mother's Day, the annual lunch at Mom's house, where we all pretended to be the perfect family we never were, where my siblings flaunted their achievements, and I was the butt of not-so-subtle jokes, the parasite, the failure, the one who never measured up. But that day would be different. Mom's house was the same as ever, big, pristine, cold. Michael, my older brother, had parked his new BMW by the entrance. Anna, my middle sister, was probably already inside organizing everything, Mom's perfect, right-hand woman. And then there was me, arriving in an Uber because my old Corolla decided not to start that morning. Everything in my life seemed to work that way. 1 step forward, 2 steps back. Michael was the city's hotshot plastic surgeon. Anna ran her own marketing agency, both married with perfect kids and perfect houses. And me, according to Mom, I was the one still finding his way at 35, as if I'd spent the last decade sitting around watching TV instead of working 3 jobs to stay afloat after everything fell apart. After she made everything fall apart, I rang the doorbell and heard lively voices inside, laughter, the clink of glasses, the smell of homemade food Mom only cooked when there was an audience to admire her. I opened the door without waiting to be greeted. No one ever did. "Well, look who it is, the artist," Michael exclaimed when he saw me, with that smile that never reached his eyes. "We thought you got lost in some creative inspiration." My brother knew full well I'd stopped painting years ago, that I had to sell all my supplies when I lost my apartment. But the failed artist label was too convenient to let go. "I'm on time," I replied, hanging up my jacket. The black box was now in my pants pocket. Anna approached with a glass of cheap wine. The good stuff was reserved for them. "Mom's finishing getting ready," she said in that condescending tone she saved just for me. "Mind helping me set the table? The kids are playing in the backyard with Richard and Claire." They're perfect spouses, of course. Richard, the anesthesiologist colleague of Michael's. Claire, the heiress to a hotel chain. And then me. Single. No kids. Working as a substitute teacher in public schools and selling digital illustrations online when I could find clients. As I set out the silverware, I remembered that night 17 years ago. I was 18 and had just received my acceptance letter from the National Academy of Arts. Full scholarship, my ticket to a new life. I showed Mom the letter, trembling with excitement. "Art?" she said, with a grimace like she smelled something rotten. "You really think you've got talent for that?" Michael's already in his 2nd year of med school, and Anna just got into business administration. "And you want to draw?" "It's a full scholarship, Mom. They only accept 8 students nationwide." "Don't be ridiculous. You need a real degree, something that gives you stability." A week later, the academy called. They regretted to inform me there'd been a misunderstanding. My scholarship was revoked because someone reported I'd accepted another academic offer. I never knew who made that call. Not until years later. The master bedroom door opened, and Mom appeared. Even at her age, Helen was still the imposing woman who terrified our childhoods. Impeccably put together, not a hair out of place. Her new dress probably cost more than 3 months of my rent. "My darlings," she exclaimed, hugging Anna first, then Michael. When she got to me, a brief pat on the shoulder, not even a full hug. "I see you decided to join us this year," as if I'd skipped some family gathering, as if I hadn't shown up for every birthday, Christmas, and special day, only to be ignored or turned into the laughingstock. "Wouldn't miss it for the world, Mom," I said. And for the first time in years, I meant it completely. Lunch followed the usual script. Michael talked about his new clinic, Anna about her big clients. The kids got over-the-top praise for good grades. No one asked about my life. Good. I wouldn't have known what to say that they wouldn't later use against me. I didn't tell them I'd landed a full-time job as an art teacher at an elementary school for next year. I didn't mention I'd finally sold 2 paintings to a small gallery. I didn't say I was saving for my own apartment after years of sharing with strangers. I didn't give them anything they could take away from me. Not again. Dessert time came, and as always, Mom stood with her glass raised. It was the tradition, the annual toast where she praised her children and grandchildren, pretending to be the devoted mother she never was. "I want to toast," she said in the voice she used as a school principal, "to my wonderful children. To Michael, who just opened his 2nd clinic. To Anna, whose agency won the National Advertising Award. To my precious grandkids, my greatest pride." She paused. Everyone knew what was coming. It was part of the show. "I'm proud of all my children." Then she looked at me, with that cruel smile I'd known since childhood. "Except the parasite at the table." Laughter erupted. Michael nearly choked on his wine. Anna tried to hide it, but her shoulders shook. Their spouses, polite enough to play along, laughed too. Only the kids looked confused, too young to grasp the cruelty disguised as a family joke. It wasn't the first time she'd called me that in public. My parasite, her favorite nickname for me since Dad died. The one who doesn't contribute, who doesn't succeed, who isn't like her perfect siblings. But it was the last time I'd hear it in silence. I stood up slowly. They all expected my usual reaction. Head down, forced smile, maybe a self-deprecating joke to lighten the mood. "At least I'm a punctual parasite," I'd normally say. Not that day. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the small black box. I held it for a moment, feeling its weight. Inside was everything. Bank documents, letters, the recording, the truth I'd gathered over years. I placed it exactly in the center of the table, between the fruit salad and the homemade flan. "For you, Mom," I said with a calm I didn't know I had. "Happy Mother's Day." Without another word, I turned and walked to the door. I didn't grab my jacket, didn't say goodbye, didn't look back. Not even when Mom's scream shattered the silence my gesture left. The scream that confirmed she'd opened the box, seen what was inside, and knew that I knew. Outside, with the May sun warming my face, I heard more shouts from the house. My phone started buzzing in my pocket. I ignored it. For the first time in my adult life, I felt I could breathe fully. I'll never forget the feeling of leaving that house. It was like I'd been submerged in murky water for years and finally surfaced to breathe. My phone kept buzzing. 10 missed calls from Anna, 7 from Michael, and 1 from a number I didn't recognize but assumed was Mom using someone else's phone. I turned it off and walked aimlessly for nearly an hour. What I'd put in that box was my secret project for the last 2 years. It started when I helped clean out Dad's old study after a basement flood. Mom never went in there. She said it brought back too many memories. The truth was, she never cared about Dad's things. Among moldy boxes and ruined books, I found a small safe I didn't know existed. It was locked, but the combination was my birth date. Inside was a thick envelope with my name in Dad's shaky handwriting. It was dated 3 days before his death. Inside were documents that changed everything I thought I knew about my life. Dad had set up a trust for my education, a substantial sum meant solely for my college studies. With the papers was a letter explaining he'd always believed in my artistic talent but didn't dare confront Mom for fear she'd make my life hell. What he didn't know was that happened anyway. The trust had been systematically drained. The transfers were signed by Mom as the administrator until nothing was left. Where did the money go? Bank statements I got later, thanks to an old friend of Dad's who worked at the bank, showed transfers to the private university where Michael did his specialization and to Anna's startup. My education funded my siblings' successes, the real children. I didn't stop there. Once you start pulling the thread, the fabric of lies unravels. I contacted the director of the National Academy of Arts, now retired, who confirmed my suspicions. The person who called to cancel my enrollment was Mom. He had a recording of the call in the archives due to the unusual procedure. He emailed me a copy. Her voice was unmistakable. "My son reconsidered and decided to take a more sensible path. Art is just a hobby, not a career." As I kept digging, I uncovered more hidden truths. Dad's will was altered after his death. The beach, house he wanted to leave specifically to me, ended up in Anna's hands. The art studio he'd started building for me in the backyard was demolished by Mom a month after his funeral to build the pool Michael wanted so badly. The final piece came 6 months ago when my Aunt Louise, Dad's sister, called me from the hospital. She was dying of cancer and wanted to talk. She told me she always knew how Mom treated me, but Dad made her promise not to interfere, fearing it would make things worse for me. Your mother always saw you as a threat, Louise said, her voice weak. You were your dad's favorite, though he tried to hide it. He saw his own lost talent in you. She could never stand that. She handed me an envelope with old photos. In one, Dad stood in front of a painting, holding brushes. It was a beautiful seascape I'd never seen. Your dad was a brilliant artist before he met your mom, Louise explained. She convinced him it was a waste of time. Pushed him into business because it was more respectable. He never painted again after marrying her. It all made sense. I was the living reminder of the dream Dad gave up. Every time Mom saw me paint, she saw the life Dad could have chosen instead of her. The day Aunt Louise died, I found another envelope among my things as I left the hospital. Inside was a USB drive with a recording of a conversation between Mom and her years ago when I'd just graduated high school. The quality was poor, but the words were clear. I won't let him ruin his life like Robert almost did, Mom said. Art doesn't pay the bills. If I have to sabotage every artistic opportunity he gets, I will. It's his passion. Helen, my aunt replied. He has real talent. Robert saw it. Robert was sentimental. I'm practical. Michael and Anna are on the right track. I won't let this one stray. This woman, my mother, didn't just destroy my chances. She destroyed Dad's before me. And the worst part, neither Michael nor Anna knew. To them, I was just the younger brother who never tried hard enough, who didn't seize his opportunities. The Parasite. Over the last few months, I compiled everything. Every document, every recording, every piece of evidence of systematic sabotage. I included receipts for Dad's medical bills I paid alone in his final months while my siblings were too busy and Mom was on a Mediterranean cruise. I added letters from galleries that accepted my work before mysteriously backing out. They all followed the same pattern. Someone told them I was a fraud. All these documents, this undeniable proof of years of manipulation and cruelty, were in that small black box I left on the table. My phone started buzzing again when I turned it on hours later. Dozens of messages. The first from Michael, "What have you done? Mom's hysterical. We need to talk now." The next from Anna, "I can't believe what you showed. Is it all true? Please call me." Then Mom's messages. The first, a threat. "Take back those lies or you'll regret it." The second, manipulation. "You're sick. You need help." The third, a plea. "Please don't show this to anyone else. Let's talk." Too late, Mom. I'd sent copies of everything to every extended family member, close friends, even some of Anna's business partners, and Michael's colleagues. The truth was out. There was no going back. My last stop that day was the cemetery, at Dad's gravestone. I placed a small bouquet of wildflowers, the ones he taught me to paint when I was a kid. "I'm sorry, Dad," I whispered, tears streaming down my face. "I'm sorry I didn't figure this out while you were alive. I'm sorry I couldn't save you too." At that moment, my phone rang again. An unknown number. For some reason, I answered. "Hi, Luke." It was a vaguely familiar female voice. "It's Patricia, the assistant at Wellington Gallery. We met years ago when you submitted your portfolio." I dimly remembered her, a kind woman who seemed genuinely impressed with my work before the gallery abruptly rejected me. "Your mom came to see me today," she continued. "She was upset, talking about a box and documents. She showed me a recording of her threatening us years ago to reject you. She seemed remorseful, I think. She asked me to contact you. The gallery owner wants to meet you. We're interested in your current work." I was silent, unsure what to say. "Luke, you still there?" "Yeah," I finally said. "But I don't paint anymore. I haven't touched a canvas in years." There was a pause on the other end. "Your mom said that might be the case. She gave me a package for you. Said it was your old brushes and some paints she kept. Want to come pick them up?" A lump formed in my throat. My brushes, which I thought I'd lost or sold years ago during my worst financial time, she'd had all along. "Why now?" I asked, though I knew the answer. She mentioned something about a small black box that changed everything. It took 3 days to muster the courage to go to Wellington Gallery. 3 days of desperate messages, ignored calls, and a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. My shared apartment became my refuge. I turned off my phone and took a few days off. Work, citing a family emergency. Technically, it wasn't a lie. When I finally walked through the gallery's doors, Patricia greeted me with a cautious smile. She was older than I remembered, with gray streaks in her once black hair, but her eyes were still kind. "It's been a while, Luke," she said, leading me to a small office in the back. "Almost 8 years, I think." On the desk was a worn wooden box I recognized instantly. My first set of professional brushes, a gift from Dad for my 16th birthday. I'd searched for them desperately when I moved out of the apartment I couldn't afford. Your mom said she kept them when they cleared out your old room, Patricia explained, though we both knew it was a lie. I hadn't lived at Mom's since I was 20. She also left this. She handed me an envelope. Inside was a check for a significant amount and a short note. The trust money with interest. It's what you're owed. I didn't know what to feel. The money couldn't change the past. It couldn't give me back the lost years or wasted opportunities, but it was an acknowledgement, an admission of guilt. Robert Wellington wants to meet you, Patricia continued. He's very interested in your work. I told you, I haven't painted in years, I said, running my fingers over the brushes. They felt strange, like old friends I'd betrayed by abandoning them. I know, but he saw your earlier works, the ones we kept in our archives after your initial submission. He says there's something special in them, a rare vision. The idea of painting again felt as distant as flying to the moon. I'd buried that dream with so many other hopes. As I considered what to say, my phone buzzed with a new message. I'd only turned it on to use GPS to get to the gallery. It was from Michael. We need to talk. I'm at the cafe by your work, please. I showed Patricia the message. Looks like tough conversations are chasing me. Go, she said, carefully wrapping the brushes. This will be here when you're ready. No pressure, no deadlines. The cafe was half empty when I arrived. Michael sat in a corner, looking awful. 3 days without shaving, unthinkable for the always pristine plastic surgeon. Deep bags under his eyes, wrinkled shirt. I sat across from him without a word. I saw everything, he started after a long silence. The documents, the recordings, all of it. Why didn't you say anything before? Would you have believed me? I asked, knowing the answer. Michael looked down. Probably not. It was easier to believe her version. That you were the problem, the lazy one, the parasite. I finished for him. I'm sorry, he said, and it sounded genuine for the first time in our adult lives. What she did is unforgivable. Not just to you, to all of us. She made us complicit. He told me what happened after my dramatic exit. Mom opened the box and started screaming that it was all lies, that I was disturbed, that I'd always been manipulative. Then Michael took the documents and started reading. When I got to the part where she used your trust to pay for my plastic surgery specialization, it felt like a kick in the stomach, he confessed. I always thought it was a loan from her savings, that I'd paid it all back. But there was no loan, was there? No, I confirmed. It was my future you were spending. Anna had learned her part too. The seed money for her marketing agency came from the same well. My future became their springboard. Anna's wrecked, Michael continued. She hasn't stopped crying. Her husband's furious. He says we need to make it right somehow. I agree. I don't want your money, I said firmly. I know. It's not just about money. It's about the family we could have been and weren't. He explained that Mom had disappeared the previous night. Left a note saying she needed time to think. Before going, she made a round of calls, including to Wellington Gallery. It was like she was trying to untie the knots she'd made over decades, but without facing me directly. What now? Michael asked, looking truly lost for the first time in his life. I don't know, I answered honestly. I don't have a grand revenge plan if that's what you're worried about. I just wanted you to know the truth, and for me to know it too. We sat in silence for a moment, two strangers bound by blood and separated by years of manufactured misunderstandings. Dad would be proud of you, Michael said finally. Your courage, your talent. I felt tears threatening but held them back. We'll never know. I am, he said, reaching his hand across the table. Proud to call you my brother. I didn't take his hand right away. Too many wounds, too many years. But eventually I gave it a brief shake. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was a start. A week later, I got a certified letter. It was from Mom, sent from somewhere on the coast. It didn't outright apologize. She was never capable of that. But acknowledged her mistakes and bad decisions. She said she was leaving me the beach house, which should have been mine from the start, that she'd spoken to other galleries. Besides Wellington, that she hoped I'd someday understand she did it for my own good. Classic her. Justifying the unjustifiable to the end. Some people never truly change, but I did. In the months that followed, I started painting again. Clumsily at first, then with growing ease. Patricia was right. Wellington was interested. My new works, infused with all the pain and liberation of those years, struck a chord with audiences. Anna and I began meeting for awkward lunches that slowly got less awkward. Michael invited me to meet his kids properly without Mom's shadow, distorting our relationship. I showed them my work, taught them basic drawing techniques. Turns out, Michael's oldest has a natural talent for art. Who'd have thought? Mom eventually came back. We haven't reconciled. I doubt we ever fully will. Some wounds don't heal. Some betrayals don't erase with a simple, "I'm sorry." But the family dynamic has changed irreversibly. I'm no longer the parasite at the table. I'm Luke, the artist who finally found his voice. A year after that Mother's Day lunch, I sold my first full collection to a major gallery. I called it the Black Box, 10 paintings telling a story of manipulation, loss, and eventual redemption. Mom didn't attend the opening. My siblings did. On the main wall hung the centerpiece, a recreation of Dad's lost work based on the photos Aunt Louise gave me, signed with both our names. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I hadn't found that safe in the basement. If I'd kept living in ignorance, carrying guilt I never deserved. If I'd kept believing I was a failure, a parasite. But then I look at my paint-stained hands and know some truths, however painful, need to come to light. Not for revenge, but for justice. Not to destroy, but to rebuild on real foundations. The small black box I left on that table didn't just hold proof of betrayal. It held my freedom. And that, more than any professional success, more than any repaired relationship, is what truly matters. I think Dad would agree. If you've made it this far, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever identified with a family situation like this? Have you met someone like Luke's mom? Don't miss our next stories by subscribing to Reddit Whispers, where we bring you weekly tales that make you reflect on human relationships and their complexities. Give a like if you felt that satisfaction when Luke finally confronted years of mistreatment, and share this video if you know someone who needs to hear it's never too late to reclaim their own story. See you in the next story, where we'll keep exploring those pivotal moments that change lives forever.